Hello, this is Georgina Rose, part-time esoteric content creator and part-time trying to think of a new intro. I'm feeling like mixing up the intro because, I've been talking about some different stuff. I've been going on a sort of new arc, I guess you could call it. So I've been thinking a new intro might fit, but I'm having trouble thinking of one. So if you guys have any ideas, comment them below, drop them to me in my Patreon DMs, drop it in the Telegram chat. But this is the Patreon exclusive content. A once monthly video that I give to my lovely supporters. First of all, thank you so much for continuing to support me. It really means a lot. It's been a turbulent few months, but things I feel like are finally smoothed out. That transition period is over and we're on to the new arc, and I'm feeling good. I feel like we've really made a lot of progress and I'm really liking the direction that we're going in. So thank you for supporting me. And in this video, we're going to be talking about a sort of debate within polytheism. This is something that I sort of came up with the idea with after creating my neo-paganism versus paganism reconstructionism video that I did earlier this month. And that'll be soft versus hard polytheism. I know I've discussed this a little bit on old podcasts and old streams, but I don't think I've ever made a video directly talking about this debate, and I thought it would be really interesting for you guys, because for me, I have a really strong stance on this topic, but I am aware that people have very different perspectives, and I wanted to share both perspectives so that you can decide which is right for you, give the arguments, and then at the end give my own opinion and stance on this debate. I think this is a type of video that I've kind of been enjoying doing. I've done it a lot for you guys, and I want to keep doing it. So first, let's start with basic definitions. I'm going to start with soft polytheism because it's the one that I relate to more, and then move to hard polytheism. So, soft polytheism is the idea that all the gods within paganism, whether that be Slavic paganism, Irish paganism, etc., are not completely separate. So, the most obvious example of this would be Hinduism. For those who don't know, within Hinduism, there are a ton of gods. Like, a ton of gods. There are also a ton of schools of thoughts within Hinduism, but a common theme in all of them is that all these gods are aspects of each other, right? Within traditions like Thelema, it shares a similar view. If you read the Book of the Law, which is the central holy text of Thelema, it is one of the Class A documents, meaning that it is a holy text, you will notice that there are these names that are sort of versions of each other, and that the components of the names move around. This implies that these deities are what are known as composite deities, or deities that make up each other using various aspects. And so when you read the Book of the Law, you can learn the parts of the name, understand what those parts represent, and then in different orders it compiles different things. For this to happen, for deities to aspect each other in this way, they need to fundamentally be from the same source thing. As well, any system that relies on emanationism is going to fall into this. Emanationism is the idea that everything is emanating down from God. If you're familiar with Hermetic Kabbalah, this is a emanationist idea, right? It starts at the point in the circle and then comes out through the Sephirah and then into the material world. And so all these spirits are parts of the Sephirah, meaning that they're emanations of the same oneness. As well, Platonic polytheism, which is a form of polytheism that heavily relates to Plato, like people who are really into Platonism as well as paganism are under this category, because Platonism is also an emanationist framework. Thus, anything coming off of Platonism is going to be this way, and Platonism led to what is known as Western esotericism. So this would include Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Thelema, the Golden Dawn. All these traditions descend from Platonism, thus they would also be soft polytheism. Furthermore, if you see invocations where it lists multiple names of gods, this is inherently a soft polytheist take. If you are looking at Wicca, you see this a lot, where, say, in a invocation of the goddess, you would say, I invoke the goddess Hecate, Artemis, Diana, Gaia, and known under many names and under many tongues. Thus, that would be arguing that when you do that invocation, you are invoking the goddess, but you are also invoking all of these aspects that interrelate to each other. Since these are all different spirits in their mythos, but are still able to be invoked as one spirit as the goddess, that means they are all aspects of each other. As well, if you look at triple goddesses, a common theme in Indo-European traditions, which is basically where you see a goddess with three faces, you see this with the triple goddess of Wicca, obviously, but it even exists in pre-Islamic Arab polytheism with Allat, Al-Uzza, Manat, where it's these three goddesses that are faces of each other. That is a soft polytheist idea. hard polytheists do sometimes have triple goddesses, but they rationalize it as those specific spirits are aspecting each other, but they are still separate spirits, right? They're not aspecting each other in the same way that an emanationist would. And so when we look at soft polytheism and emanationism, which I know I've used the term kind of interchangeably because they kind of are inherently a little interchangeable, you're going to notice that it all kind of reduces to monism. Monism is the idea of oneness, and all these traditions inevitably come back to monism. Now, on the other side of the fence is hard polytheism. Hard polytheism is the idea that all the gods are separate, distinct entities, and they are not aspects of each other. They are entirely separate entities. I find this position is most often held by Nordic pagans and Celtic pagans, particularly of the Reconstructionist variety. Though within Nordic paganism there is a case against this with Frigg and Freya. There are many people who have argued that Frigg and Freya are perhaps aspects of each other or perhaps even the same goddess, but a hard polytheist would say no, they are fully separate. This position also tends to take a very negative look at these invocations where you list the gods back and forth. I remember I read one post from a hard polytheist that when you do an invocation where you list all the gods back and forth, it's like calling your partner the wrong name in bed. It's offensive. Which personally I strongly disagree with, but that cake is one that can logically be made if you believe in hard polytheism. As well, people who are hard polytheists tend to be a lot less syncretic. This is just something I've noticed. You could be a hard polytheist and believe in multiple traditions, but generally people who are hard polytheists are in the profile of they are devotional polytheists, they are reconstructionist, and they are very not syncretic. Because if you think about it, for soft polytheism to exist, it automatically creates a more fluid pantheon and makes syncretism a lot easier to argue for, even so far as you could say that soft polytheism logically leads to perennialism, which is of course the idea that all the face of the world are different paths to the same mountain, which is of course the most extreme syncretic stance a person can take. Whereas with hard polytheism, it entails that these entities are separate and distinct, which, you know, that changes the theology a lot. The idea of soft polytheism, I've noticed hard polytheists tend to call New Age. This is not true. Plato was a soft polytheist. It's not some new thing. But on the other hand, the idea of hard polytheism did exist in the ancient world. So I don't like it when either of these camps sort of say that their version is the ancient way of thinking, because it falls into this weird misconception that you see within pagan spaces that the ancient world agreed on everything and that all the different forms of paganism throughout the ancient world were the same. They were not. They were very different. They were fundamentally different religions entirely, though of course you can argue against that if you involve cultural exchange and mystics who traveled and interacted with each other, because you do get times when, you know, there was heavily syncretic ideas back in the day. So kind of depends on what tradition you are and what you're looking for. My personal belief is in soft polytheism. I'm very strongly in that camp. I think that it only really makes sense for it to be soft polytheism, and I have had personal ritualist experiences that lead me to think that. But if you are a hard polytheist, that is a legitimate spiritual orientation. I think when deciding where you stand on this, I'd really like you not just to listen to me, because I am so biased on this topic. When we talk about pagan theology, we are really doing a lot of work to develop a theology. Unlike Christianity, there are not hundreds of books from our ancient days where we discuss our theology. We don't really have our own Aquinas. So it's really important when we embark on the project of reviving paganism to pay attention to each other and to, put our own analysis and our own views into it, because sadly our records are not that great. And so we're always going to be having to do some sewing together. And to do that, we need to listen to each other, explore diverse viewpoints, and debate each other on these topics. I'm really tired of the everyone is valid mindset in paganism, because of course you can believe whatever you want. That's completely legitimate. But sometimes I think the everyone is valid thing holds us back from being able to discuss these important topics and, share our viewpoints, because we need to be able to do that in order to create a theology. Because I would really love for the neo-pagan, pagan revival, whatever you call it, movement to come together and develop a complex theology that could rival the Abrahamic religions. I mean, give it time. Hinduism has, but Hinduism had a lot of time and never really, fell apart in the way that European paganism did. So, open your mind, continue discussing this, and if you feel really strongly about soft versus hard polytheism, drop it in the Telegram group, and we can debate it and discuss it. thank you for supporting me on Patreon. If you are a high tier patron and you want to, get your benefits, DM me on Patreon. That is how it works. You can message me. As well, the book club will be happening, I think, this week. It's always going to be like the first week of the month that I'm going to announce the book the previous month so people have time to read it. So stay tuned for book club post. I hope you guys attend. I'm thinking of posting the recording of the book club if you guys are interested in that. If not, I won't do that. It all depends on what you guys are looking for. I'm assuming you know where to find me. If not, you can just check out the link tree that has all the links. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll talk to you next month.